This whole thing was supposed to be about transparency, right? About getting answers. Instead, it became a complete and utter crisis. So tonight, we're digging into a massive data release that was meant to provide some clarity, but ended up going terribly, terribly wrong.
Yeah, that quote right there, it really says it all, doesn't it? The DOJ drops 3.5 million pages and then has to scramble to pull thousands of them back down because victims weren't properly protected. That's not just a jaw-dropping moment, that is a full-blown scandal. An action meant to bring things to light ended up re-traumatizing the very people it was supposed to shield. So how in the world did this fail so catastrophically?
Okay, before we go any further, let's just be crystal clear about how we're handling this. Tonight is facts only. We are sticking to verified, sourced documents. We will not be naming any alleged victims, and we are not getting on that online rumor treadmill. Our goal here is clarity, not chaos. That's a promise.
All right, let's get right into it. Part 1, the data dump disaster. This is the story of how a document release of staggering proportions just completely fell apart.
Let this number just sink in for a second. 3.5 million. That is the staggering number of pages the Department of Justice released, all in an effort to comply with a new transparency law. It's just a monumental amount of information, and it seems like the sheer scale of it completely overwhelmed the process.
And this is the devastating result. Lawyers representing nearly 100 survivors came forward, reporting, in their words, thousands of redaction failures. You know, these weren't just clerical errors. These mistakes had profound, real-world consequences for people whose privacy was supposed to be the absolute top priority.
And if you want to know just how bad it was, look at this. We're talking about a minor's name appearing over and over, 20 times, in just one document. An email listing 32 underage victims where only one name was blacked out. Official FBI forms just out there with full names unredacted. And maybe most graphically, nearly 40 nude photos of women were mistakenly released. The fallout was immediate. Victims started getting death threats and facing intense harassment. It's just horrible.
So, what was the official explanation for this catastrophe? The Department of Justice blamed it on technical or human error. But, that explanation just falls incredibly short, especially when you see the very specific rules the DOJ set for itself.
So let's look at the actual protocol. See, the DOJ didn't go into this blind. They had a detailed game plan. And the failure becomes even more stark when you compare what happened to what was supposed to happen.
This is it, the Attorney Review Protocol. This was the official memo, the playbook, that laid out the rules for every single person reviewing these documents. This wasn't a suggestion, it was a directive.
And the instructions inside? They were crystal clear. A highly confidential list of victim names, you redact them all. All images of women, redact them. Personally identifiable information, addresses, phone numbers, social media handles, all of it, gone. And deeply sensitive personal health information, like medical or therapy records, was also supposed to be completely blacked out.
And there it is, in their own words, paramount importance. The DOJ's own protocol states that protecting victims was the highest priority. That direct contradiction, that huge gap between their stated mission and the actual outcome, that is the core of this failure.
I mean, let's be real. If your one job is to redact victims and you miss on this kind of scale, that's not just a mistake, that's a systems failure, period.
And of course, a systemic failure this big doesn't just stay quiet. It spills out onto the internet, fueling an absolute firestorm of speculation, conspiracy, and just plain falsehoods. It creates a misinformation gold rush.
This is the paradox every time one of these massive data dumps happens. On one hand, you have internet sleuths who can uncover genuine, verifiable pieces of evidence, the real receipts. But on the other hand, the sheer volume of data and the lack of context leads people to just hallucinate connections, to see patterns that aren't really there. So how do you navigate all this chaos? Well, here's a practical toolkit to help you spot the fakes. Number 1, always look for a link. A screenshot by itself is not evidence, it's a huge red flag. 2, try to find the original source. Actually go to the account and see if the post is real. 3, use tools like the Wayback Machine to see if a post existed and was maybe deleted. And 4, a simple keyword search can often tell you if credible journalists have already looked into the claim.
Here, we have a simple rule we live by. If it doesn't have a source chain, we just don't treat it as credible. That means we need to see a document ID, a date, where it came from, and ideally some kind of corroboration from another source. Without that verifiable trail, it's just noise.
Okay, so this brings us to one of the absolute trickiest parts of any data dump: how to handle the names of high-profile people that pop up in the documents. It's a real trap that requires super careful, responsible reporting.
So let's take a real-world case study. The name Steve Tisch, co-owner of the New York Giants, appeared 440 times in the released emails. Now, a number like that immediately makes headlines, but it really doesn't tell you the whole story. So here's what we actually know. On one side, you have Tisch's statement, where he acknowledges a brief association and exchanging emails about adult women, and he expresses deep regret. On the other side, you have the NFL stating that they're aware of it and will look into the matter to understand the facts. And that's how you report it. You stick to the confirmed statements and the official responses. No more, no less.
And this right here is the most important takeaway. Just because a name appears in a document, that does not mean they're guilty. Presence in a data set is not a conviction, but it is absolutely a reason to start asking serious questions. What's the context for these mentions, and what, if any, accountability is going to follow?
Which brings us to our final section. In a story this fraught with misinformation and pain, we believe it's absolutely critical to be transparent with you about our own standards. So, here's our approach.
We want to be really clear about our red lines. We will not read graphic allegations out loud. We will not engage in what I call anonymous tip theater. We will never name alleged victims. And honestly, we are not interested in chasing shock value. If you want that, there are plenty of other channels out there. We're here for the substance.
And because this story is far from over, here's what you can expect from us next. We're going to break down the complete timeline of these events. We're going to do a deep dive into the technology and the process of government redaction to really understand how these systems fail. And we will track the story of accountability to see what consequences, if any, actually materialize.
Because at the end of the day, the most disturbing part of this isn't about one single document. It's about how many systems seem to move to protect power, and how fast the victims were the ones who paid the price all over again.